she's going to remain compliant with CMH. Why do I say that? Because she has done so and she has to do so.
All right, court calls the people of the state of Michigan versus Annette Andrea.
Right off the bat, the judge sets the tone. Compliance is everything here. But will she live up to it? Or is this just legal lip service?
253615FD. Appearances counsel?
Joanna Carey.
And I'm Jeff Pearson. I'm here on behalf of Miss Angel. She's next to me at the table.
And we are here for a plea taken on September 2nd to an OWI 2nd. I have received the substance use assessment. Counsel, have you both received that?
We have indeed.
I have.
Is there any additions or corrections to be made to that?
No.
All right. Then allocution, Mr. Harrison.
Well, Your Honors, the court will recall there are a couple of weird things about this case. First of all,
Wait, hold up. Zero alcohol? This flips the entire narrative. The courtroom just went from standard DUI to a prescription pill thriller.
blood alcohol reading in the case was all zeros. Second of all, the lab report took a year between the time that it was submitted and then it was returned to the police and through into the prosecutor as well, which caused me to file a somewhat ill-advised motion to get rid of the charge based on my mistaken recall of the events in question. That's the only way I can put it. I apologize to the court then and to Madam Prosecutor, but I'll do so again on the record. Normally, I take some degree of delight in making her angry. This is not one of those times. I really didn't do that on purpose. I want everyone to know that. My zeal.
I think you were just successful in that.
Did you catch that shade? Even the judge couldn't resist roasting the defense attorney. Courtroom sass level, 100.
I was just trying to make light of what was an embarrassing professional situation for me.
I understand.
My zeal in this case is based on the fact that I've spent some time with this lady beside me. By the way, everybody that knows her calls her Angel, even though that's her last name, so I may do that. Because I had an opportunity, I had the privilege to represent her a year ago when this matter first bubbled up. And again, by way of background, there was a plea entered to leaving the scene of a property damage accident, which even at the time, I think the behavior that was observed and described in that police report could only be described as outrageous. She was completely disoriented. She had no idea where she was. In fact, they had to stop her a couple of times from getting...
Picture this, she's dazed, calling cops nice policemen, trying to drive back into traffic. Funny at first glance, terrifying when you realize lives were on the line.
Back into her car because she said words to the effect of, "Thank you, nice policeman. I appreciate what you've had to say, but I've got to go home." So, of course, extreme caution was taken with her based on they didn't know if that was derived from her having consumed substances or if it was derived from an extreme mental illness episode. We think we've narrowed it down. We thought so at the time, and we believe it even more so now, and I'll tell you why in a minute. We think what happened was she had a completely unforeseen, at least unexperienced, side effect of the Ambient that she was taking. It's not an unknown side effect.
Yes, the infamous Ambient defense. The pill that allegedly makes people sleepwalk, sleep talk, and in this case, sleep drive. But does the court actually buy it?
It's an Ambient that can cause people to sleepwalk, sleep drive, among other things. There's been a demonstration that people have no conscious recollection of those events. The reason that we can probably nail it down to the Ambient is that she quit taking the Ambient after the events in question in June of 2024 and has not had anything remotely similar happen to her. And she's had no law enforcement contact. And of course, she's had no driving related matters as well. So we are confident that she does retain the ability to safely operate a motor vehicle, and that, as portrayed in the substance use assessment, she does not have any underlying controlled substance and or alcohol issues. She told the assessor that she quit drinking in 2020. That surprised me a little bit because I thought it was, even earlier than that, but that's a good demonstration of what I'm talking about. As you can tell, she's a single, independent woman, and although she does say she doesn't live alone because she shares her home with a dog, she is used to being independent. She's used to doing things on her own, and she's pretty pragmatic. If she had what she thought was maybe a small issue with alcohol, she quit drinking, because her underlying mental health treatment is the most important thing to her. As the court has been able to observe, she's often here. I can't imagine the time she wasn't here without Mrs. Burns being present. And that's her caseworker at CMH. She feels like they've finally gotten, let's say within the last couple of years, the right mix of medications for her treatment. She feels good. She's not lethargic. She is a normal, I use that term loosely, perspective on her mental health and her state of mind. A problem that we've had, and I want to phrase it that way on purpose, is that when we look back, she and I have to look back at that police report that came out in June of 2024. It is impossible for her to comprehend or understand that the extent of what happened that day. I think in the ensuing passing of time, it has not helped that perspective, but her perspective was she couldn't understand at the time why everyone was so concerned about her, why it was such a big deal. That was a really difficult thing for us to go through in my office. And she was not usually a very emotional person, but she was emotional that day because I think she was just shocked at being reminded of how horrible that could have gone.
Lucky break of the century. Multiple crashes, busy road, and somehow no fatalities. Divine intervention, or just dumb luck? You decide.
No one was killed as a result of what happened that day, or frankly, to my recollection, was even seriously injured. And if you look at the events in question, you would have to think that there was, divine intervention there, because it certainly could have been the case. She's on a busy road, heavily traveled, driving in and out of traffic, and hit 3 or 4 cars, and was encountered by a police officer who I don't even think he was on duty that day, but he intervened, and probably heroically so, based on what he stopped from having occurred. What am I getting at? Where am I going? I've talked a lot about background, and I wanted to give the court a full backdrop of what we're talking about here. We, as you know, somewhat reluctantly agreed to enter a plea to the driving under the influence charge, the second offense, et cetera, simply because on some level, most DUIs, and I could probably say all, but I'm going to say most, are effectuated because of a choice of the driver made a bad decision. They consumed alcohol, they used drugs, they got behind the wheel when they shouldn't have. In other words, there was a voluntariness to their actions. I don't see that element present in this case, but from a legal standpoint, I don't believe that to be a significant factor. I don't believe that would have been a valid defense to the case to say, well, she didn't need to. It was prescription medication. How many times have we heard that? But I do think this fact pattern distinguishes itself from most other cases of this type that come before you. We are also aware that it's not a legal defense to the case. And I think at the end of the day, she and I came to the conclusion that it was more important to do the right thing and take responsibility for what happened and devote herself to making sure that it doesn't happen again. And again,
And here's the heart of it. Was this really a choice? Or just reckless trust in a prescription pill? The legal system doesn't like grey areas, but this case is nothing but grey.
I strongly suspect that it will never happen again because she doesn't drink. Her current prescribed medications do not impair her ability to drive, and she no longer takes the Ambient. I just want the court to take all of that into consideration as we move forward here with regard to supervision. I don't think supervision is terribly necessary here. She is heavily involved with CMH. She has a caseworker with her all the time. She's going to remain compliant with CMH. Why do I say that? Because she has done so and she has to do so. And she knows that. Other than that, I wanted to give the court a complete picture of what our perspective was on it, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Ms. Carey?
Thank you. I think that the fact that the labs took over a year frankly to Miss Angel's benefit in this case, because it gave everyone some time to see how she would do. On the other hand, had we gotten them sooner, she likely would have been put on supervision, given the really dangerous risk, or not risk, the threat that she posed that day. And I understand that this was Ambient, and I understand that she didn't mean to, but I think it's very interesting. This was at 3 in the afternoon. It wasn't at 3 in the morning or 5 in the morning where she's, so I don't know when she took that Ambient, but this occurred at 3 in the afternoon when most people are awake unless they're working odd shifts. So I don't know when she took that, but that was her choice to take it at that point. When you take prescribed medications, it's your obligation to know how they're going to affect you. And she did a lot of damage and caused a lot of chaos that day by her actions and her choices and hitting more than one car. And it took some time for the police to find her and stop her. It was incredibly dangerous. Now, I understand it's been over a year now through nobody's fault, and I'm glad that she's done well in that year. But there are still some concerning aspects of this case and her behavior that day. And I also question, given the history, I always, sometimes I'd like to understand what the assessors are looking at when they make these substance use assessments, because when I read them and then I read their conclusion, I would come to a different conclusion often. So, but I'm not a professional of that type, but it does cause me pause and makes me wonder what they're really looking at. I'm glad she's working with CMH. I think that's important. I think she needs to do that. And again, I think the year that it's taken to get this case here has been to her benefit, but I don't want the court to forget the really dangerous behavior and the really poor driving and all the people that she put at risk that afternoon by her choice to take that pill. It would seem to me to be having that kind of effect. She didn't take it necessarily as prescribed unless she sleeps during the day normally and is up at night. That's of some concern. So I would ask you to consider that in sentencing.
Thank you. Ms. Angel, you have the right to address the court prior to sentencing. Is there anything you'd like me to know?
That I did wrong, but I didn't know what I was doing. I'm so lucky that nobody got hurt bad. It scared me. I guess I'll take what, you know, you're gonna do. You know, I didn't mean to do it.
How long had you been on the Ambien before this happened?
Probably about 5 years.
And to the best of your recollection, this was the first time anything like that had happened?
Yeah.
And how soon after it happened did you get off of it?
Oh, the next day.
But it looks like they may have helped you get some different medications to help with your issues?
I'm getting different medication through mental health.
Okay.
And one of my problems, I stayed up all night doing laundry. And then I took a pill. I don't remember taking it, but I know I was gonna lay down. But I was up all night, so that didn't help. But
Have you seen the assessment, the substance use assessment?
no,
I briefly summarized it with you.
I would encourage that when you get a chance that you look at that. It shows that you don't have a disorder, which is a good thing. And you seem to taken the right steps when you learned that this had caused an issue. You took the matter under control and got it, looks like, taken care of.
yes, I did.
Is there anything else you'd like me to know?
It scared me to death. My intentions were to go to sleep.
Did you remember any of this?
No, not until I woke up into the emergency room.
Okay. Did you have injuries from the accident?
I was bruised, but no, I didn't suffer. Just bruises.
All right. Ms. Carey, I know the other portion of this case was dealt with last year, but is there any restitution requested in this?
There was not, I think, there was damage to a vehicle, but the insurance, the other person's insurance paid for it. We did not get anything from the insurance company.
All right. Well, as the attorneys have mentioned, this case is kind of a unique one because we dealt with half of it back in June of 24, and then for whatever reason, the forensic lab took almost a year, if not more than a year, to do your analysis. I wish I could explain that.
Yeah.
I can't. So you were sentenced by Judge Menendez back in June for the fail to stop after a collision. And then this case picked up from the same events. Looks like it was complaint was authorized on July 31st. You were arraigned on August 12th and you turned yourself in, is my understanding. So all that goes in your favor, and Ms. Carey is probably right. Had this been dealt with back last June, you would probably be looking at a different outcome. Now, what I'm torn with is that you pled to an operating while intoxicated second.
Here comes the sentencing bombshell. Jail time is on the table, but watch closely. Will the judge lay down the hammer or throw her a lifeline?